Welcome back, everybody. So, God damn it. Hey guys, thought I'd give you a walk around on the Jeep. And this is my 1973 Jeep CJ-5. It's the short wheelbase. I picked this thing up, God, I think it's been a little over a year now in what I would consider pieces. I've gone through everything, so I thought we would just do a walk around on it since you guys haven't really seen it since I got it. I'm pretty sure I made a couple small videos when I first got it, but that's about it. So let's go in depth on this thing a little bit. So first off, this video is brought to you by Jack Daniels and 7-Up. That's a pretty good little mixture right there. So when we left off, oh, that's cool, cat. Just climb on up there, help yourself. I think the last video I did a little video on when I notched out that wheel well to move the seat back a few inches. It's kind of a semi-common thing that a lot of people do. You can see how much it was notched out there. Ooh, those welds were done with the old welder there, with the old Harbor Freight. But it's all painted up and looks halfway decent. View inside there. I've had this thing flexed out pretty good. It doesn't rub there, so yeah, you can see it's got plenty of clearance up in there. So that's all worked out. When I got this thing, it had absolutely no dash. The dash wasn't in it, and the wires were just hanging out of it. It was just a mess. Somehow the previous owner actually had it running for a while. I don't know how. That thing looked horrible. So starting on the dash here, I guess we obviously reinstalled the dash. He had the dash, I just had to put it back in. I've replaced every single switch on this thing. Alright, so I believe the oil pressure gauge was the original, the speedo gauge is the original. I had to buy a new voltage gauge because the stock, the one that was in there wasn't working. And then I had to buy the new temperature and the fuel gauge. Originally, temperature and fuel are integrated into the speedo here, but the replacement gauges that you can get for these are just complete junk. I tried to buy one and it just absolutely sucked. It was garbage. So I just those are actually just black electrical tape to block them off so you can't see them anymore. It just kind of cleans up the look. I took apart that speedo and cleaned everything and put it all back together. The ignition switch there, I had to make that little bezel to I think the stock switch had the hole had been hogged out a little bit, so I had to rebuild the hole a little bit, so I made a little nice aluminum bezel there. This would be the factory cigarette lighter, which I don't have. I might put one in eventually. Let's see. Oops, sorry, here. These here, I'm trying to point while looking at the camera. These are like indicator lights that would be for various things. Washer and some other, I don't know what the heck goes in there. I just taped them all off for now. I don't need them. That's the wipers. Doesn't work because the key's not on. Headlights. And I had to buy a new turn signal switch. This is a very generic, God, this video is horrible, isn't it? This is a very generic turn signal switch. That's a Signalstat 900. It's kind of a common one to be able to put in here. It doesn't cancel when you turn off, when you finish turns and whatnot. So it is completely manual. You have to make sure you remember to turn it off yourself. But it's got hazards and turn signals and everything, so it all works. I had no windshield tie downs or hold downs for this thing, so I bought these nice advanced adapter ones. I think that was about it for the dash. I didn't really have to paint a whole lot of stuff. I did paint the windshield frame because it was pretty rough. It already had this bed liner in here. I had to reinstall this cover. That's kind of a hack job, but it works. I still gotta, sorry, the low battery indicator came on the phone there. I still gotta make a little bit more around this so I can put a boot on there. Might come up with something kind of creative for a boot. This is a twin stick transfer case. I added the twin stick to it is a D-20 under there, so the stock shifter on these wear out, and it's really hard for it to control the 2 rods at one time. So the easiest, and it's actually relatively cheap, is you just buy the twin stick kit for it. It's simple to put on, throw it in there. Probably show you a little better on the other side, but nope, no, I just messed up my boot. I got to finish installing the boot on that too. We'll pop over here to the passenger side. So I did have to do a glove box insert, the plastic piece that's inside of there. Had to get a new one of those, so that works. I think I had to buy the latch too. Yeah, that looks pretty fresh. So the latch is new. Kind of works. It rubs a little on the roll cage, but still operates. You can see the twin stick. It's real basic. Just stick it in there. It connects to the 2 rods to the transfer case. Basically what this gives you, everybody always asks what it does. Basically you're controlling the front axle and the rear axle independently through the transfer case. So for low range and high range, the way it's set up now, it has like kind of like a factory thing inside the transfer case. It doesn't allow you to do low and high range at the same time. Obviously you wouldn't really want that. So it does have a sequence, but it does allow me to go low range rear wheel drive if I really wanted to do that for some reason. I don't know if this will let me do just front wheel drive. I think I have to take out the pills within the transfer case to be able to do that. Let's kind of walk around the outside of this thing. When I got it, it was missing a lot of random things, like one of the chrome rims for the rings for the headlight. It was missing some of the hardware up on the hood. I gotta stop pointing because it's focusing weird. I didn't have mirrors. There were no mirrors on there. Just tons of random stuff like that throughout the whole thing. So having to go through and just buy all these little random bits. I mean, it all added up, but it's nice to have a complete vehicle. Other things on the outside here, tail lights. I had no lights on the back of this thing. Didn't even have holes or anything. And when they put these diamond plate covers on, they never cut them out. So I bought the factory style tail lights for this, which is these little round protruding tail light. It's not exact replica, but they're pretty close. The backup lights are pretty close. The only difference is the backup lights would normally be mounted above the brake lights in a factory position, but I couldn't do that because if you notice my fuel filler over there, that's not a factory fuel filler either. The factory fuel filler would have been just straight up like a small round fuel cap that went right above the tail light. It didn't have that big box cut out in there. So with this setup, I wasn't able to put the backup light up there, so I just put them down in the corners there. When I get a spare tire on there, they should still be visible. This fuel fill, I'm not sure what it's out of. It's a later Jeep. I don't know if it's more YJ style or if it's a later CJ style. I'm not sure. I just kind of used what was already in there. You can see it's kind of just screwed in there with somebody made a little bezel to mount it all up in there. Oh yeah, you can see the factory, well, those wouldn't even be the factory holes for the taillights, but somebody had cut some out at one time. But that's basically the back side of the diamond plate you're seeing there, where the taillights are going through. I don't think I touched on the soft top. That's brand new. The soft top that came with this thing, it was junk. I think it had been pretty much stored on the ground for 10 years. So when I tried to straighten it all back out, it just cracked and kind of went to junk. I did redo the exhaust that you see there. It had the side pipes already on it, but they had real big, goofy, I don't know, just like a standard muffler hanging off down there, so it looked really bad. One side hung down real low, and I don't know, it just looked real janky. So I put these, I'm not sure what these are. I think they're like Jones, God, what'd they call them? Like turbo tubes, I think. They look like a glass pack, but they're actually a chambered muffler. which is actually really nice because they're small. They're just small round. Yeah, you can see where they've welded in their baffles inside of it. So it doesn't have glass pack material inside of it. It might still have some glass pack material in there, but looks or sounds a lot better than a glass pack to me. Plus I wanted to try and keep the exhaust up as high as possible in case I start wheeling this thing. All right, let's get into the drivetrain. So this already had a Chevy small block 350 in it when I got it. Supposedly it's out of a 72 Malibu, which was pretty much first year of smog and first year of when they went from like, what do you call it, SAE horsepower ratings to, I don't know, wherever the heck they called the previous one. So the numbers are all screwed up. I'm guessing it's like a 250 horse motor, maybe, based on the older ratings. It seems pretty stock. I don't think it has a cam or anything in it. I'm pretty sure it's just a stock motor. It is orange, so that's kind of nice. But it does have intake manifold, which is nothing crazy. I think it's just an RPM. It's not even, or it's a performer, not an RPM, if I remember right. Probably come over to this side and see. Yeah, if you can read that, it just says performer, so it's real basic edelbrock intake. Valve covers that were on it were chrome, but they were extremely rusty, so I had these edelbrocks that were less rusty, so I kind of polished these up and threw them on just to clean it up a little. The air cleaner that was on there was painted chrome, and that was all peeling, so I had the Summit one. This actually had on my 82 Chevy for a while, so I had to clean the rust off that and throw it on also. You can see it's all pitted, and it looks better than what was on it though. I didn't do a whole lot to the engine, like internally, nothing. I did pull the headers off and re-weld a bunch of stuff. They were pretty cracked and whatnot, and then I just cleaned them up, kind of polished them a little bit, just to give them a little bling, but they're pretty rough. You can see how rusty they are. I think it's this side, yeah, you can see where I was using the old Harbor Freight welder. It was split all the way down the side of the pipe, so I had to re-weld all that. This side was broken. This is actually old weld that somebody else had already done. I mean, I do bad welds, but you know, I like to try and do a little better than that. But that's not my weld. But yeah, I did have to, I think I welded the bottom side a little bit more where they didn't weld it up. So trying to just clean up all the exhaust leaks and stuff on it. It's not horrible now. I did, you know, spark plugs, wires, you know, new air cleaner, just the standard tune-up stuff. Oh, and the carburetor. I guess that would probably be the biggest thing that I actually did to this. That's a Holley Truck Avenger carburetor, so that's one of the best off-road carburetors you can buy. So we got that in there, so that's cool. New battery, and if you might notice, there's a wiring all throughout this thing. So I rewired this entire Jeep. I did a painless kit in it, specific for the Jeeps, even though you still have to, they say it's specific, but there's nothing specific for the Jeep, so I don't understand that. But anyways, you still had to pin all the plugs and cut all your wires to length and all that stuff. But we got it done. You can see where we ran the nicer loom on everything, but it is nice that everything on this Jeep works now. Everything, every switch, every function works on this thing. I was kind of surprised that everything worked out the way it did. Under the hood, I think that's about it. Oh, I did add this air horn. This is an old one I had on the shelf. I'm not sure if I got this from my uncle or the family friend, but I know I've had this thing for a while, so I threw it in there, wired it up, because I had a nice horn wire on the new harness. Oh, yep, under the hood there also, we did a Borgeson steering shaft. The steering shaft that was in this was kind of a welded together hack mess with a rag joint on one end and one of these U-joints on the other, and it was just an absolute nightmare. So I got a proper Borgeson steering shaft for it. So we got that all good to go now. Do a little underbody shot here. The front axle on this is a Dana 30, nothing crazy, but better than, I guess, a Dana 27. You can see the engine there. Doesn't really leak that bad. It's actually surprising that this thing doesn't leak. Oil pan's a little wet there, but it's not dripping. Transmission is an SM465. That's a very stout transmission. I always call them dump truck transmission. It's the same thing I got my 1-ton Chevy over there, so I'm not gonna break that in this little thing. But it does have granny gear, so that's cool for wheeling or whatever. If we move back to the transfer case, that's a Dana 20. That's a really nice gear-driven transfer case. First time owning one of those, so that's kind of cool. Fixed some leaks out of it, resealed up speedo cable and stuff like that. If you notice, the rear drive shaft looks pretty fresh there. That is a Tom Woods custom drive shaft I had to have made for this thing because the stock one was too short, I think. Yeah, because I lifted this thing, so the stock one was too short, so I had this one custom made. Plus, this is a CV style, where the factory one was just a U-joint on a single U-joint on each end, and the angles were super extreme, so you just can't do that on the road. I mean, they were like 20 degrees on each end. It was ridiculous. So I ordered this drive shaft, and I did the axle shims. If you see, there's tapered shims on top of the leaf springs there that actually points the pinion of the rear axle up, so it points it directly at the transfer case, and that is proper for running a CV drive shaft. So we got that all set up. That rear axle is a Dana 44. That's really nice to have. I don't think these are strong as some of the later Dana 44s and like trucks and stuff, but it's a good little piece to have under there. If you notice the springs, those are all new. I did a 2.5-inch BDS lift on this, so I put their shocks and springs on it. It's one of the better riding lift kits for these things. I didn't want to go super cheap because like a rough country rides extremely rough. So you get a BDS, they have nice ride. The springs actually have I don't know what you call them, little friction pads between the leaves. I think that's where they get a lot of their nice ride from. Plus the shocks seem to be working good. When I got this, it had a small lift. It had a 1-inch Rancho lift on it, which is really weird, but that's what they did back in the day. So, but it was so stiff, I couldn't even drive across the yard without bouncing out of this thing. So doing these springs, it's so nice now. You just cruise it around like a normal car. Give you a little shot of the exhaust we did here. I did weld up like the pipes on the mufflers, and I welded those flanges on, so that actually worked out pretty good. I did the hangers on the back there so they weren't just completely hanging off the headers like the old stuff. But you can see they do hang kind of low. Oh, jeez. Sorry. You know, with the way those headers are, there's just nothing else you can do. I angled the pipes up as much as I could, but you can see up at the header there, it's like 1 inch away from the body mounts on the frame there. So you can't go any higher really. So that's all you got to work with. So hopefully they hang together. If I ever redid headers, I would probably do just shorty headers, and I would run the exhaust under the Jeep normally and come out the back somewhere, just for wheeling purposes. It'd be a little better, so you wouldn't have to worry about smashing your exhaust on everything. One thing I did forget to mention is we did do a new fuel tank also. There's a new fuel tank, fuel sender, all that good stuff. It's a skid plate there. Not a whole lot to show. So for the general stance of the vehicle, these are 33-inch ProComp mud tires, and what are they, 15 by 10 ProComp wheels. So they look pretty good. This was my vision of these Jeeps, was to run that size with the 2.5-inch lift. It kind of gives it a slightly stuffed look. It's not overly tall. To me, that was like the perfect look to have on this Jeep. So that was my vision. I think it looks good, even with the hood up. Well, I think that concludes the walk around on this thing. There was a lot of small stuff that I replaced, like pinion seals and output shaft seals and stuff like that, but you know, you just do tons of that stuff on these things, on these older projects, trying to get things operational, and you don't have to talk about every little single tiny piece that you've replaced. So I think that's it. I'm hoping to maybe do some light wheeling, four-wheeling on this thing to try and do some break-in runs on it, and I don't know, just get to using it a little bit more. Hopefully I keep it around for a while. I'll keep it as my one running classic vehicle, so that'll be kind of cool. I think on top of that, yeah, that's about all we got.